Joining me now, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today, Susan Page, and politics staff writer for Roll Call, Shira Toeplitz, both of whom come from Washington. And I know you're looking enviously at Kristen's position there in Honolulu. I'm like, wow, couldn't we all be there? Anyway, hello to the both of you. Susan, I will begin with you here. The president has said no compromise whatsoever on the debt ceiling, but reports say that Speaker Boehner told fellow Republicans he's going to use the debt ceiling as leverage for spending cuts. So who do you see as having the upper hand when it comes to raising the debt ceiling?
You know, Alex, this reminds me a lot of the government shutdown. The confrontation we had between President Clinton and Newt Gingrich back in 1995, where they were really at loggerheads over spending issues. And the government, you may remember, shut down for a total of 28 days. People forget how long that confrontation went on. And what do we see happen that time? Advantage the president. The Republicans really took it on the chin. The president had the bully pulpit. We see the President Obama, already trying to make his case in the clip that you showed from his Saturday radio address. He's trying to say these are debts we've already incurred and catastrophic consequences if we aren't seen as a nation that will pay its debts. So we see that positioning coming out already. I think it's a lot like the fiscal cliff debate where the president has some natural advantages.
All right, Shira, let's talk about Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas, who wrote this op-ed in the Houston Chronicle. And here's what he said, quote, "It may be necessary to partially shut down the government in order to secure the long-term fiscal well-being of our country, rather than plod along the path of Greece, Italy, and Spain." So a couple of things here. I mean, is there a fair analogy to be made with issues like Greece and the financial troubles they have been having, rather? And do you think we really would see a government shutdown over this?
I mean, as Susan pointed out, it's always a possibility, just given the nation's financial situation and the upcoming deadline. That said, I don't think it's that likely. I think this is more of a bargaining chip, an opening foray from very conservative Republicans. And I'll make a note about Senator Cornyn as well. He is the #2 senator among Republicans in that chamber, but he is also up for re-election in 2014. Texas is a very conservative state. There's probably a reason he placed that in the Houston Chronicle. He could face a primary challenge. No one's emerged yet, but obviously that's a concern on his mind.
Okay. Susan, some Republicans opposed the Sandy aid that passed yesterday, at least the first part of it, because they say it should be offset with cuts to other government programs. Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer of New York says that he fears the next much larger installment of aid, that's set for January 15th House vote, that could get tripped up. Is that at all likely?
Yes, I think it is likely. I think there's going to be a big battle. I mean, I just see January, February, and March as being a reprise of the kind of hand-to-hand combat that we saw over the fiscal cliff. Sandy aid will be part of that. You know, Sandy aid benefits places like New York and New Jersey. Those are Democratic-leaning states, even though New Jersey, of course, has a Republican governor at the moment. The Republicans in the House, predominantly Southern and Western, and they think this bill, not the aid, the $9 billion that was passed this week, but the additional package of aid is larded up with a lot of other projects that help places in Alaska and Washington. So yes, I think that this will be one of the battles over what do we want to spend money on, how much money do we want to spend. I think it's going to be a fight.
What do you think, Shira? Same thing, a fight? I mean, do you think it possibly could get tripped up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the conservative Republicans have already said they want to get as much pork as they can out of the $51 billion in the second Sandy package that's going to be voted upon in mid-January. I do think it'll be a big battle, and conservatives are really going to try and use this maybe as a testing point almost to see how many cuts they can get out of the Senate.
You know, can I just ask you, Susan, I mean, as an observer of how this all runs, why is it that politicians don't anticipate these kinds of problems? Like they're going to say, you know, there's going to be pork here. Let's dilute everything and just focus on what's at hand. This is called a Sandy bill. Why not just put forward money and provisions for those affected by Sandy? I mean, why doesn't that ever happen?
Well, because it's politics, and a lot of political people have some projects that they would like to fund. There are not many vehicles to jump onto, to piggyback onto these days because of concern about the debt and the deficits. So when you see something that you can call Sandy aid, that sounds pretty appealing to people who have watched the devastation along the coastline from that superstorm. they naturally jump on it. I mean, it's part and parcel of the whole broader battle over, should we be really being austere now because we're worried about the debt and deficit? Should we loosen the purse strings because we want to accelerate this recovery?
But it's not like we're not going to talk about it and all the details. But anyway, let me ask you quickly, Shira, with regard to Chuck Hagel, the potential nomination for Defense Secretary. I mean, his name's been all out there. Anybody else's names being put forward as a viable candidate?
Not really at this point. Obviously, Chuck Hagel's name has been floated for a while, and I think if there was going to be serious concern he was not going to complete the confirmation process, his former colleagues would vote against him. The White House would have pulled him back at this point, like they did with the Secretary of State nomination and Susan Rice there. But I don't think the White House is thinking that's going to be a problem at this point. There are other candidates who could do the job. The White House couldn't nominate, but right now their money's on Chuck Hagel.
Okay. My money's always on the two of you. Love having you on. Shira Toeplitz, Susan Page. Thank you.